I was gonna do this anyways for my my Chucky guide video because I needed footage of this regardless. Hang on a second, I gotta grab some. Yeah, I had to get footage of this regardless because I needed a completely finished version. So we're gonna do a tier list of every single perk in the game for Charles Lee Ray, because why the fuck? So I'm not going to do this in the normal way of S, A, B, C, D, E, F. Anyone who knows me knows I hate that kind of stuff. I don't know how to word the rest of these. Do not use. It's gonna be that. Synergize? How do I spell synergize? I figured it out. Synergizes with power, decent, good with full build. Does not synergize. I think that's pretty much it. I think 4 tiers is fine. Do not use. Delete. Trying to think. What is... I love how it kept the colors. Can I not? Oh, I guess that's just stuck there. Great. I love it. Great. That's not... Synergizes with power. Good with full build. Doesn't synergize. Just good on its own. Okay. Alright, so we're gonna go down the list of every single one. Let me do the Wii music. I never listen. Okay, so first up, we're gonna go in order. We're not gonna wishy-wash. We might like take a couple out of place, but for the most part, I think this is what we're gonna. Nurse is Calling. It's good with the full like aura build or anti-healing build, so I'd call it edgy. Good on its own. Generally speaking, agitation is just the time it saves you is something people don't talk about enough because people often combine it with Scourge Hook, but I would argue that the time it saves you when you're going to a hook is just enough. Alien Instinct, just use barbecue. Just use barbecue and chili if you're gonna use Alien Instinct. Alien Instinct does make the person oblivious, which technically does synergize with Chucky's power, but if they're all the way on the other side of the map, you can't really do much with it because it's only for like 20 seconds. It's just not worth it. Awakened Awareness, good with a full build. Chucky can actually synergize pretty decently well off the auras. Bamboozle, synergizes with power. Bamboozle, it doesn't synergize with the Slice and Dice necessarily. What it synergizes with is the fact that there's a few loops in the game, and we'll get into this with Dark Arrogance as well, where if you vault it fast enough with the speed you get from Bamboozle, you can land a Slice and Dice that you normally would not be able to land. Shaq is a good example of this. It also means a lot of loops that he can't normally play, he can play because of Bam. Barbecue and Chili, just generally a good perk on its own. The information is never bad. I would say maybe bring other stuff with it, but it's not bad. Batteries included, good with the full build. The 5% is never bad. You just kind of don't want to, be in that area. Territorial Imperative, synergize... No, don't use Territorial Imperative, please. Bitter Murmur, good with a full build. Bitter Murmur is... In fact, I'll put it good on its own. Aura Reading in general is probably going to go there, but it's okay information. Chucky's slow, we can't usually do anything with it, but, it's never bad to know. Blood Echo, good with a full build. I was going to put it in Does Not Synergize. Chucky doesn't really hit and run, but because the general gameplay to play against Chucky is similar to Legion, where you want to split up as much as you can, oftentimes survivors will stay injured, and that's something you do want to keep them at, is injured, because slice and dicing someone while they're injured is just cut your chase completely. Blood Warden, good with a full build, as always. It's Blood Warden. Bloodhounds, do not use. However, fun fact about Bloodhound, if you're gonna use Bloodhounds, just like Chucky has an add-on that's basically Bloodhound when he's in power. I mean, use Bloodhound instead of that, but yeah. Brutal, synergizes with power. Brutal Strength is probably one of Chucky's best perks. The amount of zoning you can do with this, and then immediately follow up with a Slice and Dice, ever since they changed it so you can't manual scamper, is actually kind of insane. You activate Howdy Ho, add a loop, zone the survivor to the proper side, Brutal Strength it, and then you basically get a free hit immediately after. Call of Brine. I don't know if I should put this in good with a full build or doesn't synergize. I'm gonna put this in does not synergize. A lot of kicking perks don't work well with Chucky. I've said this before. He can use them. I need to make this very clear every time I say this. Chucky can use kicking perks. Like Pop Goes the Weasel, like Call of Brine, like Overcharge, like Oppression, which we'll get into in a minute. However, He's not the best at it because he can't target the gen he wants to with it a lot. Not saying it won't ever happen, but, you know, you have to go out of your way sometimes to get the most use out of these. So I often put it in does I synergize. Corrupt Intervention, good on its own. Chucky is probably one of the better leaders of Corrupt Intervention. Since he doesn't get that first down immediately, and often some maps are so big, he can't even make it to the farthest gen before it pops. So Corrupt is almost a necessity sometimes. Chlorophobia, it doesn't really synergize. Chucky is undetectable most of the time. Not most of the time, but he's undetectable enough to where any terror radius perks just don't synergize. Yeah. Coup de Grace, good with the full builds. There's some trash loops where Coup de Grace actually makes up for the fact that Chucky can't play them normally, or Slice and Dice. This is going to be an interesting one. I'm putting Claustrophobia in Synergize with Power. Claustrophobia is not good. Let me preface this now. Let me rephrase that. Claustrophobia is not that consistent. It is not very good and doesn't work most. However, one of Chucky's biggest counters is windows. And Claustrophobia can sometimes get you hits you normally wouldn't because all the windows just got blocked for no reason. So it's not bad for that exact reason. And it technically does synergize with this power. Same with Dark Arrogance. Dark Arrogance is the same reason that Bamboozle does. I personally run Dark Arrogance over Bamboozle because I like the 5% increase. And I personally believe that if you're playing Chucky correctly, you shouldn't be getting stunned that often. So the downside isn't even that. Dark Devotion synergizes with the power. Undetectable perks are going to be very difficult to do in this because some of them I do think work decently with Chucky. Others, not so much. But Dark Devotion definitely synergizes with Chucky. I would actually say it's good on its own rather than synergizing with him. The reason being because Chucky isn't very good at hit and run. You know what? Actually, you know what? I'm putting it in good with the full build. Where was I anyways? Oh yeah. Dark Devotion. Like I said, Chucky being undetectable isn't the best thing in the world. It's just, let me rephrase that. For Chucky, it's not the best thing in the world because the 12-meter laugh can give you away sometimes, and Chucky can't hit and run very well. And a lot of times you don't want to M1 people. So Dark Devotion doesn't even get the well, actually they've changed Dark Devotion. I take that back. Yeah, you can hit it with the M2. I would still say it's just good with the full build. It's not really good on its own. And it doesn't necessarily synergize with the power. Darkness Revealed. Chat, I'm going to say this now. There are almost 200 perks in this game. If I get a name wrong, you can bite me, okay? There's 200 perks in this game. Anyways, Darkness Revealed, it's just, I want to say it doesn't really synergize well. In fact, you know what? Hang on a second. Hear me out on this, on why this synergizes with Chucky's power. So, the reason why Dead Man Switch synergizes with Chucky's power is because of the footsteps. The moment you hook somebody, if you activate Hidey Ho, the footsteps land. And while to some players, particularly ones who are paying attention, will not hop off the gen, some will, because they get scared by the footsteps and are looking out for you just to make sure you're not coming towards them. Forcing them to get off. Very similar to how Freddy kind of synergizes with Dead Man Switch. Deadlock, just good on its own. Deathbound. Let me double check something with Deathbound. I need to remember if Deathbound is range or terror. For the next 60 seconds. Wait, whenever a survivor heals another survivor for the equivalent of one health state, at least 32 meters. Okay, so it's ranged, and they get oblivious. I'm actually gonna put it in synergizes with power. It's not good, and that's the thing about this tier you'll notice. Not all of these perks are necessarily good, but they work with Chucky's kit. Oblivious is one of the best status effects Chucky can have, and it giving you the information on where that person is and where to go, and the fact that they don't know you're coming might be enough to make it decent. Deerstalker, I kind of don't want to put it in do not use, but don't use Deerstalker, please. Discordance, go to its own. Disillusion, when Manual Scamper was a thing, I actually think Disillusion was one of Chucky's best perks. Now I would put it in just bad, but not useless. It's okay. He can't really make the most use out of it. Agitation, do not use. I have tested Agitation on Chucky to kind of get a similar effect to Wesker of having like a massive terror radius, making you like impossible to find. Yeah, it doesn't work. Don't do that. Don't be an idiot like me. Dragon's Grip, bad but not useless. Chucky can like camp a gen, but if the person is paying attention, they'll know you're there because they'll hear the laugh. So Dragon's Grip isn't the worst thing in the world. But with the buff, that's actually kind of okay now, but yeah, I wouldn't take it. Chucky's also not really good with exposed perks because he shouldn't be M1ing that much, so I will contradict that statement here in a minute, I promise. Dying Lights, do not use. Just don't use dying. Enduring. Good in its own. Chucky shouldn't be getting stunned by pallets that often if you're playing him correctly. But, I mean, it's never a bad thing. So, yeah. Eruption. This is the one kicking perk I was going to mention that is actually decent on him. Eruption, unlike the other kicking perks, and another one we'll get to later, allows you to basically prep a gen to regress. It's just, and the aura reading is also decently okay on him. But it means that unlike the other kicking perks, you don't have to necessarily prioritize a specific gen. You can just kind of do it as you're going along. Fire Up, I'm going to put it in good with a full build. The extra vault speed is the main thing Chucky's using with it, as well as the break speed, because of Bam and Brutal being there. And Chucky does lose gens a lot, especially if you're not running like full slowdown. He will lose gens fast. So Fire Up does come into effect pretty decently for him, but I still don't think it's worth it unless you're fully building into it. Force Hesitation, good with a full build. Chucky, okay, once again, I can't believe there are 200 perks. Dying State within 16 meters. Okay, all right. I just want to make sure it wasn't Terror Radius. Yeah, Chucky can make decent use out of this. The slowdown people means that he can often follow up with an M1 to hit them, and allow him to snowball slightly, or at least protect himself. I think if you're doing a slug build on Chucky or something of the sort, it's actually not terrible to use. Force Penance, I just say Force Penance is decent on its own. It's like, protection hits seldom happen with Chucky, I feel, at least when I play. Plus, he can kind of avoid being body blocked because he can slide off survivors left or right, so it's not that big. Franklin's, oh, I meant to say, wait, yeah, bad, but Franklin's, someone's going to disagree with me on this. Chucky doesn't, actually, you know what, I'll put it in does not synergize. Chucky shouldn't really be M1ing that much, because of his slow speed. So he won't get the most use out of Franklin's. It's not bad, especially when you combine it with another perk, that everyone is complaining about still. But it's not bad, but like, unless you're, in fact, you know what? I'm gonna put it in good with a full build. Friend, I just need to clarify this with Franklin's. Franklin's itself isn't that great of a perk. Combined with Weave, it is way too strong in certain situations, and Chucky having full aura reading is actually crazy. It's the reason Rat Poison is as powerful as it is. So in combination with that, it's really good with a full build. But once again, Chucky isn't M1ing that often. At least he shouldn't be. Friends till the end. Doesn't synergize with the power because you can't make it to them fast enough for the exposed hit. I wouldn't even say it's necessarily good on its own because you're running it for the info, not for the exposed hits. I would just put it in it doesn't synergize. He can use it, don't get me wrong. But for his power alone, it's not that great. Furtive. I actually think Furtive is really, really great synergistically with Chucky. The haste effect is a game changer for him in a lot of loops. The undetectability, while the laugh does give you away sometimes, it's still you can still sneak up on people a lot closer than you normally would. So it's not terrible. The only real problem it has is the obsession, but if you find the obsession early enough, it can definitely be good. Game of Foots, as with most obsession perks, it's going in good with the full build. Gearhead. Gearhead's hard to rate. I feel like I should make another. We'll come back to Gearhead. Genetic limits, do not use. Don't use genetic limits, please. Oh, God. The thing is, I don't even think his perk is that bad. It's just, you can't, like, you don't even know if it went off half the time. And correct me if I'm wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong on genetic limits. Is it Terror Radius? Chuck, hey Scooty, we're doing a tier list for perks for Chucky. Whenever a survivor finishes a healing, I mean, I'm gonna give genetic limits the benefit of the doubt. I'm gonna put it in bad but not useless. The biggest problem I have with genetic limits, and this is just a general perk problem I have with a lot of perks, you never know when it went off, realistically speaking, or if it even did anything. I still would say don't use it. That is true, but there's another perk coming up that kind of overshadows that. Because I have said this before, if you know a survivor has Dead Hard, you don't have a power against that survivor. So exhausted perks aren't the worst thing, but I think this is probably the worst one. Because if they don't heal, and you run up on them, then it's a wasted perk, because they're just going to Dead Hard you anyway. And if they do heal, well, then they're going to Dead Hard the second, like, I don't know. I'm just going to put it in bad but not useless. Save myself the Grim Embrace, good on its own. I wouldn't say it necessarily synergizes with Chucky, but I would put it in good on its own. Blood Favor, synergizes with Chucky. One of Chucky's biggest strengths, as with most killers, but especially him, if you can get pallet control, there is almost nothing you can do against him at most loops. If he can land that M2 or M1 before you make it to the pallet, and then activate the Blood Favor, and then he can just run up on the pallet and take the control while it's still not able to be dropped, he's getting the down faster than he normally would. Is it the best thing in the world? No, it's still a hex at the end of the day that can be taken away. But when it does work, it makes him look better than he already is. Crowd control, similar to Chlorophobia and Blood Favor, I would say it synergizes decently well. For very similar reasons to Blood Favor. Windows are Chucky's worst enemy, and anything that can negate them in some way, shape, or form will always synergize with his power. Not saying run it, I'm just saying it's decently okay. Devour Hope. Do I even have to say why Devour Hope is good? Like, I mean, I can. Face the Darkness. Synergizes actually decently well with Chucky. I have an entire build for Face the Darkness. Chucky is undetectable throughout a decent portion of the match. And since Face the Darkness is based on Terror Radius, you will constantly be getting info with this. Like, all the time. It's actually kind of insane. I still need to do more testing with it, and I could put this in good with a full build, but honestly, it's decently okay on its own, and it synergizes with the fact that he's undetectable most of the time. Haunted Grounds does not synergize. Chucky doesn't do that great with exposed perks in general. Devour Hope is the exception because it's Devour, because this is more like a pseudo slowdown perk at the end of the day. But Haunted Grounds just... he can't make too much use of it. You can use it for, like, totem protection, like most killers do, but it's still not that great on him. Huntress Lullaby, do not use. Don't use Huntress Lullaby, please. Buff Huntress Lullaby, please. Every perk I'm putting in do not use. Behavior, please buff it. Or rework it, please. Noed. So this one's complicated, because it's Noed. It's Noed. It's good, right? This can save a game. It's one of the few, like, second chance killer perks in the entire game. However, there's a better in-game perk for Chucky that's not this, but it's Noed. Like, do I even have to say anything else? Even after the nerfs and the changes to Noed, it's still good. I don't run it personally. I don't know very many people who do. But if we did, yeah, we would be menaces, I swear. Pentimento, good with a full build. Genuinely speaking, Pentimento is good. And he makes it very clear. Pentimento is great. From a strength perspective, not saying from a balance or a design perspective. From a strength perspective, Pentimento is great. However, on its own, it's virtually useless. Which brings us to the next one, Plaything. Plaything is probably Chucky's best perk, apart from Brutal Strength, as far as synergizing with his power goes. Anything that causes Oblivious, and I'm going to probably say this like 17 times, anything that causes Oblivious is really, really powerful. It gets rid of your 12-meter laugh because you don't have to go to undetectable to sneak up on people. Can't wait for most slowdown. No, they're in bad, but not useless. Or no, does not synergize. Though most of those will probably be in does not synergize, Alice. And Plaything is also a pseudo slowdown. And it synergizes with so many other perks. Pentimento being one of them. Plaything is just in general good, and I really find it odd I don't see it as much as I do on other killers when I do play Survivor. It's I don't know, it's kind of nuts how good this perk can be sometimes. Retribution, good with the builds, even then. Yeah, good with the build. The Oblivious is nice, but like, unless you're running other totems, it's just not good. Ruin, I'm gonna get some hate for this. I'm gonna get a lot of hate for this. I think Ruin is good on its own. It's not amazing, but Chucky can't really use very many other slowdown perks, and Ruin is one of his few options. On top of that, the footsteps can also mean that people get off gens earlier, and that can help you save a couple seconds here and there. I think Ruin is fine on its own for Chucky. Third Seal, good with the full builds. What is it? Thrill of the Hunt? Oh, yeah, good with the full build. Two Can Play. Do not use. Two Can Play is actually funny. I've seen it used in a few builds here and there. The problem with Two Can Play is that, typically speaking, you're not getting stunned very often as Chucky. So you kind of have to go out of your way to get stunned. So you don't get it up as often as you would think. Can you get use out of it? For sure. You can, but I still wouldn't recommend. I'll put it in bad, but not useless. Oh, shit. Sky, what did you just send me? Memes? Fair enough. Undying, in a build, obviously. Undying, I actually think is not that bad on its own. I'm gonna get crucified for saying that. I don't think Undying is actually terrible on its own. The aura reading, because I've ran it on its own before, the aura reading it provides from the dull totems is actually kind of funny, and a part that no one ever really talks about. Chucky can use that to his advantage sometimes. But in general, yeah, using it for its main purpose, just good with full. Most of the Hex perks are going to probably fall into that. Hoarder, do not use. Even with the new perk coming out, I still wouldn't recommend using Hoarder. Hubris. When manual scamper was a thing, I would say this synergizes with his power. Now that it's not, it's bad, but not useless. You can sometimes get use out of it. Chucky's also 110, so you're not really catching up to people. And he doesn't work very good with slowdown or with exposed perks. Hysteria. I actually think this synergizes with his power. While you're not going to be hitting and running often, if people remain injured, Hysteria can actually get you a lot of good value. You'd be surprised how many people you sneak up on. I'm all ears. Bad, but not useless. You can't really do too much. If they fast vault a window, you're Chucky. What are you going to do? Infectious. Bad, but not useless. Kind of similar to Force Hesitation to a degree. In fact, you know, I'll say it's good with a full build. If you're doing like a full slug build or a hit and run build or something like that, this can help you keep your momentum on Chucky. So yeah, I would put it there. Once again, not the best option in the world, but it's an option. Insidious. Probably one of two killers who can actually use Insidious to its fullest potential is Chucky. The other is unknown. Insidious is okay. It synergizes with his power, so I'm going to put it there. Because you can often hide at loops, and people will not... So, okay, alright. For those who don't know how Chucky's laugh works, when Chucky goes undetectable, he will let out a chuckle. That's what I call it. I call it a chuckle, not a laugh. And where he will go, This laugh is omnidirectional. It will give away your exact position, directionally speaking. However, it does have a range on it of 12 meters, which is the exact range of a slice and dice while you're moving. So the reason why Insidious is actually pretty decent, and I've used this a few times on maps like Haddonfield, Eyrie of Crows, Ormond, Yamaokas. If you can find a bush somewhere, like near a gen or near an objective that's 12 meters away, you can hide in the bush and wait for people to show up. Once again, not the greatest strategy in the world. I'm not saying it is, but it does synergize with his power. Not the slice and dice power, but his size, the fact that he's short, which is a part of his power that often gets forgotten about for some reason when people talk about it. His size is definitely part of his power at this point. Same with his third-person camera. I would consider that definitely part of his power. Probably a controversial one, but I would still put it. Iron Grasp. Bad, but not useless. Iron Maiden. Don't know why you would. There's, like, no reason to do that. That being said, people, I think, are starting to learn that you can run into a locker while he's slice and dicing, and the animation is long enough for you to run out and make it to a window most of the time. Do I think it's a reason to run this? No, I'm just saying it's a thing. Knockout. So here's where my bias is going to come in. Normally I would put this in good with a full build. However, for my own sanity, I'm putting this in do not use. Can Chucky use knockout? Yes. However, you should be downing people with your M2, so you're probably not getting the most use out of it. On top of that, Chucky is very slow, so slugging is not always the best thing he can do. And on top of that, this is probably the worst, most unhealthy perk currently in the game that people very rarely talk about. Do not run knockout. This is coming as a knockout enjoyer. I used to run this perk all the time. Do not run knockout. Moving on. Langwind Touch. Go into the zone. Actually, we were talking earlier about exhausted perks. I think Langwind is actually going to start getting used more in the coming months. Not only does it exhaust people while you're chasing them, which means that they have dead hard, now they don't. This perk is also a semi-information perk. It goes on cooldown. I think people forget that when they're talking about this perk. If you pay attention to the bottom right, it will go on its cooldown when it activates. Which means, let's say you're walking around and you see it go on cooldown. Someone's nearby. You know someone's nearby. Someone just disturbed a crow so you know someone is there. Is it the best information? No, but it's still information. It's also, like I said, it's really good at countering Dead Hard in particular, in my opinion. It doesn't really work that well against Sprint Burst, and it doesn't really work that well against Lithe or anything like that, but Dead Hard, definitely, which is one of Chucky's biggest. Lethal Pursuer, good on its own. I don't think it synergizes with Chucky very well. If you land on a big map, the information you get from Lethal, while still good, he can't get over there fast enough to necessarily capitalize. Leverage. There are some leverage enjoyers I know. I'm just gonna put it in Do Not Use. By the time leverage is good, the match is basically already over, and you could have ran anything else to get value out of it. Is that Lightborn or Shadowborn? That's Lightborn. Lightborn, bad but not useless. It's Lightborn. We all know it's Lightborn. Machine learning does not synergize. So, okay, all right. Machine learning is a complicated one to talk about for a couple. The big thing with machine learning is that, yes, the 60 seconds of haste and undetectability is not bad for Chucky. If anything, it's great for him. On top of the fact that often he loses gens very quickly because he has no map. But that lack of map pressure is kind of the problem. Because of the way machine learning works, you have to kick a gen, then you have to kick a gen again to mark the gen. Then once that mark gen is done, then you get the effect. Like I mentioned earlier, Chucky cannot always kick the gens he wants. So machine learning is very hard to get the most use out of. I have an entire video going over it, and that took me about 10 games to get footage of the 2 matches I did, and they weren't even that good, in my opinion. Mad Grit, bad but not useless. Make your choice. Doesn't really synergize too well with Chucky, in my opinion. Once again, he can't really make it back to the hook fast enough if it's far enough away, so it has to be at least 32 meters. He doesn't work very good with exposed perks, so yeah. Merciless Storm, this is a hard one to rate, because technically it does synergize with Chucky, but I'm going to put it in bad but not useless. Like, Merciless Storm is okay, and he can get use out of it because footsteps, but yeah, it's okay. Mindbreaker. Wait, is this called Mindbreaker or Fearmonger now? Which is it? What is it called now, chat? Someone tell me. Is it Mindbreaker still? It's before Monitor, so I think it's both. Okay, fair enough. It's good on its own. I would say it synergizes with his power, but it really doesn't synergize with his power. More so, it stops one of his biggest counters. One of Chucky's biggest counters, and this goes for a lot of killers, but him in particular, is pre-running. If a survivor pre-runs a gen because they know you're coming, you're 110. Just don't forget that. Even with Slice and Dice, if you don't know where they went, that doesn't matter. Fearmonger can buy you, or Mindbreaker, or whatever it's called. Why are we skipping Gearhead? Because I don't know where to put it. I'm coming back to it. Yeah, I would just say Fearmonger in general is decently good. In fact, I think it's, once again, another one of those perks I feel like I should be seeing more often because it's actually good on a lot. Undone? We'll get to Undone. I have words for Undone. I mean, I guess I'll put Gearhead, and I don't know where to put it because it doesn't really synergize with his power. It's not necessarily good on its own. It doesn't really, like, I got value out of Undone once because a fucking Survivor team failed like 30 skill checks in a row because one of them had like 5 hours in the game. I'll put it in good on its own. I guess. I don't really know where to put Gearhead. It's an anomaly of a perk in this situation. Monitor synergizes with your power. Now, I mentioned earlier that Oblivious is really good on Chucky. So is lowering your terror radius. The laugh he does when he's within 12 meters while undetectable does not happen if your terror radius is lowered. If you combine this with Silk Pillow and Strobe Light, Monitor Abuse plus Silk Pillow plus Strobe Light, you have a 10-meter terror radius. It doesn't seem like that big of a deal, but remember, Slicing Dice's range is 12 meters. So you can basically get in range. This is like old Deathslinger with like running Monitor and like the ADS add-ons that lowered his terror radius. You can literally walk up on people and be well in range to hit them with a Slice and Dice attack. It's actually kind of insane sometimes. Maybe that's my bias, but I still think it synergizes with his power. Nemesis. Even if you're doing like a roulette, it does make them oblivious, but like the cause is, I'll say it's good with the build. The oblivious is kind of nice, but otherwise, like, because you shouldn't be getting stunned that often. No Way Out, going on its own, Nowhere to Hide. This is the one exception I'm going to make to the kicking perks. Nowhere to Hide gives you so much value because it doesn't matter which gen you kick. That's the thing with Nowhere to Hide. And the thing I tell people about this with Nowhere to Hide. So let's say you kick a gen and you don't see anyone on Aura reading. Some people would say, oh, well, Nowhere to Hide didn't do anything. It did, though. Now you know no one's there. It still did something, so it's still good. Nowhere to Hide is one of the most ran killer perks for a reason. It is just that. Oppression. I'm gonna put it in good with the full build. I think with the buff Oppression just got, it's actually decent. And unlike the other kicking perks, you can affect the other gens with this. So Chucky can actually use it pretty decently well. Yeah. Overcharge, similar to Call of Brine. I just put it. Overwhelming Presence. Don't use Overwhelming Presence. Not only is it just not a good perk, but Chucky is undetectable most of the time. So you're not even getting value out of like one of the most useless perks. Overwhelming Presence is the best. Trust. Yeah, Archie, you better be getting that Overwhelming Presence value out of your 10-meter terror radius. At least you'll know it's doing its job, right? Play with your food. Okay. So, here's the thing with play. The movement speed on Play with Your Food is really nice. It's really nice. However, the hoops you have to go through to get them, on top of the fact that you lose 2 of them in a chase, I would just say don't run it. It's not that good. It's not worth it for the haste. There are so many better haste add-ons, or I'm sorry, perks. Run batteries included, run furtive, run machine learning over Play with Your Food. It's just not worth it. And also Chucky doesn't really synergize very well with exposed perks, so he can't even make the most use out of it. Do you use it on Heidi Ho activation? No, it only goes off for Slice and Dice and M1. Fine, I'll move. Happy, I move. This is probably the one I'm gonna get the most hate for. I'm gonna get so much shit for this. Pop Goes the Weasel. Does not synergize. Before you get your pitchforks, let me explain. The key word there is does not synergize, not does not work. I have made this very clear the entire time. Chucky cannot often get to the gens he needs to in time to make the most use out of... Where was I? Pop Goes the Weasel. Yeah, Chucky he can't make the most use out of it. That's my only thing here. It's not bad, it's just he can't personally use it the best. It's my same problem with, like, Huntress using it, in my opinion. I don't think Huntress can use it the best either. Or Deathslinger. People still run it because it's still good slowdown. But you can't use it on the gens you want to necessarily, and that's my biggest issue with Pop. That's why I put it in does not synergize. It's also, after the nerf it received recently, I think it's even less worth. Once again, still an amazing perk. It's just, I don't think Chucky can use it the best. Predator, I'm gonna put this in do not use, but Chucky does sometimes have some weird scratch mark readings, so it's not the worst thing to use, but don't use it. Rancor, does not synergize. Once again, Chucky cannot do much with exposed perks for that reason. Rapid Brutality. Synergize with power. Rapid Brutality on its own, by the way. You don't even need to save the best for last like a lot of other killers do. Chucky's 110. Being 115, even for a couple seconds, can mean the world. Especially if you use it correctly, you can M1 someone and then immediately catch up to them with Jump Rope, Rapid Brutality, and a Slice and Dice. In like, I think it's like 1.25 seconds. It's actually kind of insane if you can use it correctly and you're in a good spot. Remember Me, bad but not useless. Save the best for last. I think it's good on its own for Chucky. Actually, no. It's good if you build into it. Once again, similar to Rapid Brutality, if you build into Save the Best for Last properly, while Chucky can't and shouldn't be M1ing that much, if you can force value from Save the Best for Last, the double taps you can get with Save and Chucky are insane. I've downed people in literally 3 seconds from healthy because of Save the... It gives them no time to get to pallets, no time to get to corners to dodge the Slice and Dice, and a lot of people don't expect you to be as fast as you are. Floods of Rage. This is another hard... A lot of the aura reading ones are very difficult to rate this way. Bad but not useless. I mean, like, Chucky can use the aura reading, but, like, I don't know, it doesn't always come when you want it to, and and it's like it's something that it doesn't synergize with its power because I mean, I'll just put it in good on its own, actually. It's not. Gift of Pain, good on its own. Gift of Pain is really underrated on M2 killers that don't insta-down, I feel. Chucky in particular, because once they get unhooked from Gift of Pain, on top of the fact that Chucky doesn't have very many good slowdown options, Gift of Pain, so once they get unhooked, they have to make the decision, do we heal now and risk being basically exposed to Slice and Dice the entire... Or, but if they do that, they also get the regression penalty. So, like, it's a win-win either way for you. Either they're doing gen slower or they're exposed the next time you see them virtually for slice and dice. It's actually pretty decent on him. The one downside is that it's a Scourge Hook. That's honestly the only downside. But, you know, bring Agi. Why not? Hangman's Trick. Synergizes with... I'm kidding. Don't bring Hangman's... For the love of God, don't bring Hangman's Trick. Monstrous Shrine. Don't use Monstrous. It's not terrible. I mean, it is, but it's not like... it doesn't, like, get no value, and it can mess up timings sometimes, but... It's not worth relying. The one thing this Monstrous can do is provide pressure if the, you know, team knows about it. Otherwise, though, it really won't do. Pain Res, good on its own. Of course it is. It's Pain Res. Probably the only real slowdown that Chucky synergizes with is Pain Res. And that's because every killer in the game synergizes with Pain Res because it's pain. Do I have to talk about Pain Res? Like, do you guys really need a long, lengthy explanation on why Pain Resonance is good? Like, do we really need that? Okay, moving on. Septic Touch. Don't use Septic Touch. Septic Touch, unlike Genetic Limits, they require to be in your terror radius when it happens. And Chucky is undetectable all the time. So, actually, am I incorrect? Is it the opposite? Whenever is our... Well, inside terror radius. Okay, yeah. Inside terror radius, yeah. So, yeah, don't run Septic. Shadowborn, don't run it on Chucky. You shouldn't be getting flashlighted that often. Shattered Hope, don't run it because boons are almost non-existent and it's not worth it. Sloppy Butcher, doesn't synergize. It's not terrible with him, but you should be M1ing. Spies from the Shadows, another controversial one, but I'm going to put this in good on its own. I think Spies is one of the best information perks in the game, if you know how to use it properly. The only counter it has is Calm Spirit. And it's probably its biggest problem. I actually learned how to use Hangman's. You see when you hook a survivor, you pause the game and disconnect because you realize you misclicked the yeah, Spies is it's fine on its own. Spirit Fury doesn't synergize because you shouldn't be getting stunned very often, but is what it is. Starstruck doesn't synergize because you can't really get exposed hits. Strider, okay, Chucky, a lot of Chucky players will tell you, similar to Spirit, you do have to use audio a lot of the times, because when you're hiding your model, sometimes you can't actually get the camera in the proper spot. So you're using your audio to know where they are for the slice and dice hits. So Strider isn't bad, but I still wouldn't recommend it most of the time. I would just say turn your volume. Superior Anatomy synergizes with your power. Once again, Windows are one of Chucky's biggest killers, and this can help you immensely get a slice and dice hit almost after the moment after you vault a window. Jolts does not synergize. In fact, you know what? I'm not even going to say does not synergize. I'm putting Jolt and do not use. Do not use Jolt on Chucky. If you're getting consistent M1 downs on Chucky, you're playing Chucky wrong, or the players you're going against are just that bad. Just don't run Jolt on Chucky. You should not be getting that much enough value out of it to make it worth. It would be like running Jolt on Huntress. Like, will you get value out of it? Yeah, here and there. I mean, what do you think it should go and do not synergize? Surge. I'm sorry. I spent 2 years learning that it was called Jolt. Well, when I say good on its own, I mean good on its own, like as in like Chucky can use it and still get use out of it. Like decent use out of it. Like Chucky can't get that much use out of Jolt / Surge. Hi Denali. Hi Theo. I'll throw you a bone, chat, and I'll put it in does not synergize. How's that? Surveillance. I think it's good with a full build. It's not the best thing, and Chucky isn't really using that much regression anyways, but info's info. Okay, Terminus. Also, I just realized I confused Beast of Prey and Territorial Imperative. I don't care, they're both terrible, so they're both going and do not use, but yeah. Man, Hunter, step your game up with your perks, please. Behavior, can we go back through Hunters and fix her teachables, please? All of them? Terminus, as Sky just said, is an M2 Noed. Chucky actually gets more use, in my opinion, of Terminus than he does out of Noed. Because if you combine this with portable TV, you have a almost 4-second dash that can pretty much insta-down anyone on the map. It's just really good. If you combine that with No Way Out, giving yourself that extra minute, it can also be good. If any, I actually think Chucky is a decent contender for one of the better in-game killers because of portable TV. Thanatophobia. I don't want to put it in do not use, but because it's still okay, not really, but don't run Thanatophobia. It's just not worth it. Chucky shouldn't be hitting and running that often. Like as much as is required from that to get the most value. And even then, the value is not really worth it most of the time. You're better off just continually chasing that dude and just downing them. Thrilling Tremors, good on its own. I actually think Thrilling Tremors is one of the most overlooked perks in the entire game. It is information. It can, in theory, be gen slowdown. There is one change I think Thrilling Tremors needs to make it actually more widely used, and it's make the cooldown work just like Starstruck does. If they did that, I think Thrilling would actually be decently used. It's also uncounterable information. There is no way for them to counter the info that Thrilling gives you. It's similar to Barbecue, but Distortion won't stop it. Thwack, bad but not useless. It's thwack. It's, like, I mean, you'll get value from it, but, like, not enough, I think, to warrant it most of the time. Yeah, maybe I'm crazy. Tinkerer. It's good in a full build. If you're doing a build around, like, being undetectable constantly, Tinkerer. I don't think it's good on its own, especially for Chucky, because, like, okay, the gen's almost done, you have undetectable, you can go up to the gen, now what? Right? If they're not injured, you're not doing anything. And if more than one person's there, you're definitely not stopping. You know what? No, I'll put it in good on its own. It's okay. Trail of Torments. Good with a full build. If you're doing like a Dragon's Grip, you know, even then, I'd put Trail in bad, but not useless. It's not useless. Like, once again, I prefer Trail over Unforeseen, which we'll get into here in a second. But it's just, the potential is there. The information is there. And you can trick people into coming back to the gen with Chucky, obviously. But the laugh you give off gives you away. But yeah, I just put it there. Running Tinkerer with machine learning is so much fun. I mean, fair. Like, it has its synergies, but yeah. Yeah, I'll put Tinkerer back in good. Ultimate Weapon. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I didn't use Ultimate Weapon when it was, like, the meta, and I haven't used it since it got nerfed. I have no opinion on this perk. Like, honestly speaking, I have literally no opinion on this perk. So I guess I'll just put it in bad but not useless. Like, I don't even know how it works now. How does it work? Isn't it, like, only from the locker after you open it? When you open a locker, all survivors within 13 meters of the locker scream and reveal the location. This causes blindness for 30 seconds. That's it? And then it goes on cooldown. Yeah, bad but not useless. Probably don't run this perk. You know what? No, do not use. Don't use it. Yeah, just run Darkness Revealed. The unperks. Unbounds, technically it synergizes, but only in very specific situations. So I'm just bad but not useless. Undone. Don't use Undone. Please. God, just don't use Undone. Please. But Undone is the best. I would love to see consistently. I want you to send me a video clip of you getting Undone value in 3 games in a row. 3 games in a row. I want to see it. If I see it, I will take back everything I just said. I'll put it in Synergize with his power. I'll say it's the best perk ever. He loads up a custom. There you go. Unforeseen. Good on its own. The thing with Unforeseen, normally undetectable perks are actually pretty decent, or pretty bad on Chucky for the most part. However, because the terror radius gets put on the gen, if you're still nearby the gen, they actually won't hear your laugh over the terror radius. Because of how the game does the audio layering, the terror radius goes above your laugh. So it's actually not that bad. The one problem is you have to kick a gen, but once again, it doesn't have to be a specific gen it can be in. Is this... What is this perk called? I forget. I knew there was going to be one. Unnerving Presence! There we go. Don't use this perk. As with most terror radius perks, they don't work with Chucky at all. But much like Overwhelming Presence, this is not worth it. All right, I'm coming back to Unrelenting because I got some words for this perk. Weave Attunement, good with a build. Whispers, good on its own. I don't care what anyone says. Zanshin, don't. All right. I'm gonna let you guys in a little secret about humans have this amazing thing. Humans have this amazing thing called Object Permanent, where you knew how to do this before you learned how to spell it. Don't bring Zanshin. It's not worth it. In the situations it would be worth running Zanshin, like, basically any other perk would have given you more. But yeah, Object Permanence and all that. Also, I'm surprised Object Permanence hasn't been a perk in this game. It's such a cool name, I feel. Last one is Unrelenting. So I have made some controversial calls on some perks. I have. Now, there are 2 killers in this game who actually make decent use out of Unrelenting. For those who don't know, those 2 killers are Hag and Deathslinger. Now, Hag typically doesn't run it because the use it gives you is if you teleport and miss a swing. That's the use it gives you. Most times you don't want to do that. Deathslinger can actually get decent use out of Unrelenting because if you spear somebody, and you know you can't hit them, and they're injured already, you have to swing to let go of the hook, the chain. And Unrelenting can help you catch up faster if you're not running Cigar for the fatigue cooldown, which basically does the same thing. But yes, however, I'm putting this in Synergize with Power. Here is the reason I'm doing this, and I even mention it in the guide. Because Chucky is in third person, and because of how the FOV works, and because of how the auto-aim works, there will be multiple times where you will clearly hit somebody, but the game just says no. This happens on a lot of killers, but it happens more often on Chucky, believe me. Am I saying run Unrelenting? No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying if it really does start to irritate you, run Unrelenting. Just trust me. But that's it. That's all the perks in my dumb tier list. With a lot of controversial takes, I'm sure. If you agree, you agree. If you don't, well, you know. I saw, who did I see playing Chucky the other day who missed, like, the easiest M1 of their life because the game just said no? Because of how the FOV is. I have, like, been sniffing survivors, and I will swing, and the game is like, well, actually, your FOV had you pulled back more than you thought you were, and I just swing through them. But this is it. This is the Chucky perk tier list. Now, remember, these aren't organized by, like, best or anything. It's just, like I said, synergize it with the power, good on its own, good if you build into it, doesn't synergize, bad but not useless, and then just don't use these perks. Knife goes through the... Fuck do you mean that's not a hit? It happens more than it should. It really does. What was I gonna say? But yeah, that's it. That's it. This will probably be in the guide somewhere, I'm sure. But chat, how much do you hate it? Be honest. How wrong am I?
Subscribe, damn it. I'll be back. I always come back, and so should you, you moron.